I'm going to talk about ICP, Internet Computer. I'm going to go over 5 different things. We'll talk about what it does, the news, recent news, talk about the token itself, why it has or hasn't skyrocketed yet in price, and then we'll look at pricing and the chart. Now, to me, from a purely technical standpoint, I believe ICP is amazing because you can do everything on chain. Now, full transparency, I always say if I own it or not, I do. I own some. I have for a while. I love it. We'll talk about a little more about marketing and that sort of thing. But generally speaking, look at this. Why ICP exists, what's its core purpose? Essentially 3 things. Decentralize the cloud. It says replace traditional centralized cloud servers with a permissionless blockchain that hosts front and back end code, letting apps and even full web services run entirely on chain without AWS, Google Cloud, private databases. Okay, what does that mean? Basically this. A long, long time ago, when I was younger, and we wanted to create a website on the internet, we had to host on servers our own database, our own web server, that sort of thing. Then over time, you could rent space from various places, and then they came up with cloud hosting, where you would just deploy it to the cloud, and then they would put it out on web servers throughout the world, making things easier, cheaper, more scalable. So things have gotten better and better over time. This is literally the next iteration of that, which is where you don't have to deal with any of those back end, what they would call centralized, basically meaning someone does have control, an entity, like AWS, Amazon, or Google for Google Cloud, where they could turn something on or off, meaning you, if they wanted to. Decentralized, this is the next phase, all on chain. No one has the authority or ability to just turn something on or off. That's essentially what it means. So that is an amazing technology. As far as I know, no one else in the crypto space or the blockchain space has the ability to host something completely on chain. Okay. And then it talks about being the world computer so that you can serve responses and whatnot. And it grows as more nodes are added running ICP. Tamper-proof self-governing software. So it's decentralized and it's secure. If you understood that, then you can understand how powerful ICP is. That's what it is. Let's talk about recent news. Now, if you were to click this link here on the ICP homepage, it opens up another page. They call it their ICP dashboard. Has all sorts of information, but latest news. 2 pieces of news, I think, in 2025 were very important. One was the AI, what they called Caffeine. They were talking about it for a while. It basically means that you can speak into existence an application. So, normally, if you wanted to write an application, you could use various tools, but essentially you're coding at your computer and you're writing code, whatever that may be, and then you're implementing it. But in this case, you're just going to talk it out. So you don't really need any coding experience. Now, of course, it helps if you've got some basic experience in writing, let's say, requirements, because you're speaking to natural language processor. So you're talking about, I want to build a website, and I'd like for people to be able to register. And when they register, I want to get their email and their name. And I also want to hook it up and allow them to hook it up to their PayPal account. And they're going to subscribe. And it's going to be this much a month and whatever. And you talk about what this app does, and it creates it and then puts it entirely on chain. That's huge. Plus, it's it was brilliant, a brilliant move to create that because it's a front end for putting things onto ICP. So that was really smart. The other one, and I'm going to have to read it here, is Solana. Here it is. They announces Solana integration on ICP. Essentially, so ICP canisters, that's what they call it a canister, which is holding the code and everything related to the app and what you've deployed on chain. Smart contracts can read or write to SOL to Solana apps without centralized bridges. It helps position ICP as a multi-chain processor for high throughput DeFi and gaming. You probably know that Solana is a very popular layer 1. ICP is also a layer 1. And with that, I think that's going to help them tremendously as well, as they said in DeFi and gaming. All right, let's talk about the token. Real quick, on the homepage, you may have noticed this number cranking up. Why? Because there's essentially two things you can do with the ICP token. One is it's used to pay for the service. So, sure, I can rent space and I can pay to house a rack full of servers. That's old school. And then it was like, okay, well, I'm going to pay for usage, which is like through AWS, where when a lot of people show up, I'm paying more to host my apps and my service. When less people show up, I pay less. So it's a usage model. And then ICP, everything's on chain for the compute power of running it. It's another pay per use model. You're going to pay an ICP. So this number cranking up is just showing all of the ICP being paid to run these various apps and whatnot. The second thing is you can stake it and you can vote. That's how you burn ICP. You might say, that's great. The supply is going down. Well, hold on. ICP has an infinite amount of supply. See this little infinity? So more ICP is being created every day. And as we just showed, ICP is being burned every day. Why is it being created? It's being created to help pay for essentially two reasons. One is when you stake it and you want to vote. And I've got other videos where I show how you can get into what they call their NNS and you can stake it and then you can vote and participate. If you want to take voting and read about the changes and whatnot, most non-technical people aren't going to care about that. But the second thing is to pay the node operators. So at the moment, it is inflationary, meaning more ICP is being created on a daily basis than is being burned. But as ICP becomes more used, the idea is that eventually more ICP will be burned than will actually be created. And then it becomes deflationary, meaning there's less and less tokens over time, which should increase the value. There's many reasons to increase the value, but that's one that would definitely help increase the value. So that's why you see the market cap and the fully diluted value are always going to be exactly the same. That's good. You don't have to worry about that. They're on many different markets. They're currently at a 3 billion market cap. They are considered, which puts them number 37 at the moment. They are a layer one. So if you were to look at all the layer ones, you can see where they sit. Not every top coin out there is a layer one. Here they are. Surprisingly, I think they are hugely undervalued. So let's talk about that just real quick. ICP, as I've mentioned, from a technical standpoint, is unbelievable. No one else is doing it. It is way ahead of many different cryptos when it comes to hosting everything on chain. So why isn't it just skyrocketing in price? Well, there could be many reasons, but let me give you one example. It's kind of related. I used to be a patent attorney. When I was in law school, I would do what's called patent searches, and you would go through and actually look at all these various patents. Okay. So here's one that I ran across that was very interesting. Most houses have a lock and a key, and sometimes they have a keypad these days, and maybe your smartphone that can unlock it. But let's just look at a lock and a key. Go to Home Depot, go to Lowe's. What does one cost? I don't know, $30? Lock and key? Okay. So I'm flipping through all these patents years ago when a lock and key is 20 or $30. Maybe it was 10 back then. I'm pretty old. And I see a patent for just putting your eye up to a reader, and when it sees your eye, it says, yep, that's the person that's allowed to unlock the door, and the door unlocks. Wow, that was a long time ago. Why doesn't every house have that? There could be a lot of reasons. Maybe it costs like $50,000. So do you want the key, that's $10 or the key that's $50,000? So I'm not saying this is a pricing issue. The point I'm trying to make is that sometimes it's also marketing. Maybe there's another great thing that costs the same price, but it just didn't take off. Ever heard of Betamax or VHS? Well, they were both two ways of watching movies. Betamax went by the wayside. It's gone. And now it's VHS. Also, a long time ago, believe it or not, IBM had an operating system come out about the same time as Windows, and I think it was called OS2. I used it. I thought it was awesome. For some reason, it didn't take off. And it was gone. You don't hear about it. I think they may use it on their supercomputers, but regardless, Windows is the majority of the operating systems, not IBM OS2. And most of you probably had never heard of it. But if you look it up, it did exist. So The point is, just because something is technically superior and amazing doesn't mean it's going to be adopted. So, I own ICP. I think it's amazing. I think it should be a top, I'll say 15, because in the top 10 you've got Bitcoin and Ethereum and stable coins and other stuff, but definitely in my opinion it should be way higher than it is now. So I'm really surprised, and I don't have a real reason as to why it hasn't yet. Maybe this bull run isn't the time that it's going to take off, because maybe it's just not being adopted yet by those that are putting, websites and apps out there. Things take time. Who knows? Okay. 3 things that I forgot. Housekeeping. 1, you'll see below there's a link or a QR code. In the description, there's also a link. If you use the QR code or the link and you're in the US, you can use iTrust Capital as an IRA and you can buy crypto in there and you don't pay capital gains. I've used them for 3.5 years. I continue to use them and I don't see any reason why I wouldn't. I think it's a really good one. That's why I promote it. Secondly, I have a school community where we have daily discussions about crypto and I have classes. So if you like the way I teach, you'll love those classes. And we have I do daily market updates in there as well. And lastly, big dumb animal, don't do what I do. Informational purposes only. That's my disclaimer. Let's get to pricing. First, it was about a month or so ago. I've done a total of 32 videos on ICP. So for those of you that say, you don't like ICP, I do. And this one was a pricing video. I also have a video on how you can buy other ICP projects. But if you look at the pricing video, it's a long one. I'm not going to go into all the details. I'm just going to give you the answer, but you can go through it because I said I think ICP can 30x, and this was the math behind how that would happen. Notice there's a like button. Please like this current video if you would. You can subscribe if you haven't already. There's a join button if you want to help support the channel. But essentially, I was pointing out that you see here it says final answer about $1 billion. For ICP to go from its current $3 billion all the way up to 3 times 30 is 90 billion, based on slippage, arbitrage, liquidity pool reactions. Using ChatGPT, it came up with it only takes $1 billion to move it to a 90 billion market cap, which is a 30x. So I think that is very possible. And if we look at the complete list of cryptocurrencies, and we look at fully diluted over here, and we scroll down, we're looking at 2 trillion, 400 billion. 90 billion would be like a Solana right now. And I think ICP could do that no problem. And we believe, if you're like me, this is July of 2025, that a lot of these are going to do a 5 to 10x potentially. Well, these larger market cap, maybe not so much a 10x, but we'll see. So the idea that it could get to 90 billion, I think it's entirely possible. Let's look at the chart. Now, this goes back to 2022. When they first came out, it was a much higher price. But let's just look at, that has 23. Let's look at 24 and 25. Look at November, December. So in 24, it had gone up to a price of about $20. It's currently sitting around $6. This is a common looking chart. Now that the market's starting to move, there are a handful that have come out of this consolidation pattern and shot up. So ICP, as well as most of the crypto, are a little behind the curve. We're not technically in an alt season yet. You can see the buying pressure that really pushed this up. That's significant. But then there was a lot of sales when it came down. Here's one thing that's fairly good. I'm just going to draw this real quick. But roughly speaking, it's been bouncing down around that price level. However, if we look at the same time frame, the on-balance volume, what has it been doing? It's been slightly up since that same time frame. If we draw a line from there to the bottom. And recently, it really took a huge push, which is great because it needs to break out these moving averages. Love to see that cross. But that's a nice amount of volume, which is helping push this up. We're testing the levels constantly, but the lows of the OBV are getting higher. That's great. So I personally believe it will move. It's going to do a 3x just to get to the November, December price. I mentioned a potential 30x if you watch that video. Now 30x from 5 would be 150. It has been over 150 in the past. There's some various reasons from that. There's long history as to why it was up here in the beginning. Not really valid, but do I think it could do that again? This is 86 right here. I do think it's entirely possible. I hope this was helpful. Please do like and subscribe. I appreciate it. I also appreciate comments, your thoughts on ICP. I'm a big believer, but like most crypto, we're going to see what the market does. I know ICP is not going away. The question is it going to be a runner in this market or not? That remains to be seen. Thanks for watching. Hope we can all make generational wealth together with crypto. Have a good day.